Wherever Jenny Patton was headed when she stepped out of her house, the city administration knew about it. For 3 weeks, a municipal worker sat outside her home, taking detailed notes on the whereabouts of Jenny and her 3 daughters.
The agent, the person following us, came by 2 or 3 times a day, every day. He would note whether the car was in the driveway or the car was parked, nearby, whether lights were on or lights were off, whether he saw the targets coming in, getting out of the car or getting into the car in the morning and leaving the house.
Patton was even tailed in her car. But why were officials spying on her? She was completely clueless all along until the school board cited her and informed her that she suspected of registering her daughter at an elementary school that was not in the vicinity of her home. At the time, she owned 2 homes, and officials wanted to know which was her primary residence. Patton was shocked when she found out.
The fact that a desk officer, who normally, never deals with surveillance issues at all, can suddenly, hop in his car and conduct a 3.5-week spying operation alone seems totally unbelievable.
The local government in Poole, Patton's hometown, refused to talk to us, but they have promised to stop their surveillance activities on school issues. The underlying law is really an anti-terrorism and anti-crime measure, but the truth is that local communities are often using it to deal with day-to-day matters. They can go further too and collect data.
Under these powers, there are hundreds of bodies that can find out who you've been emailing, who you've been texting and who you've been calling and when and where you were when you did it, which can actually, if pieced together, provide a pretty intrusive picture of your life.
Everyday life in Britain is becoming more regulated day by day. In the future, everyone who has contact with children has to register with officials, even parents who accompany their children on a school trip. Richard O'Hagan is a father, lawyer and children's book author. Sometimes he reads to students in schools, but in future he'll have to register with an office so that they can check if he's a potential paedophile.
Pig is happy.
It's an unnecessary scheme. I think it's a scheme that's going to deter people from wanting to get involved with their children's lives outside of the home, and I think it's not going to deter one single criminal.
Doing swimming.
O'Hagan says someone who was really up to no good would just take on a false identity.
Bye-bye.
I think this is just another extension of the current government's desire to control every aspect of our lives, whether it's from security cameras in the streets to checking up to make sure we're safe to be around children to whatever. They want to know absolutely everything that we're doing, when we're doing it and who we're doing it with.
In the future, surveillance could go even further. Plans are afoot to establish a huge database that will collect the data of every Briton. As many as 50 categories of private data would be stored.
The way that the legislation has been drawn up will allow much more information to be potentially added to that database, and the data on there can be shared with potentially huge numbers of public bodies, governmental bodies, and even private companies ultimately. So there is a great big sort of network of information that can be potentially held on every single person in the UK.
Patton is one of the few people defending herself against what kind of data is stored, what the government knows. But she's also one of the few who know they were spied on. Most of the time, officials work undercover. This clandestine work can continue even if no evidence for wrongdoing by those under surveillance is found, as is the case of Jenny Patton.